who was the Buddha? The Buddha was someone who did something amazing, something which is incredible. I mean, we are living in this dream or this like image and sounds and this, which are like all of them not truly existent, and we are all ignorant of this. You know, we are completely involved, or how do you say, inside this kind of dream. It's not it's not a dream, but it's like a dream, not like illusion, they say, no? Like, and he woke up. You know, you know how our mind works. You know, it's like completely distracted all the time, thinking all kind of things. So on all this, he could make some calm and see the reality as it really is, and do it long enough and strongly enough to not have to come here again, because, you know, we believe in reincarnation, and we are reincarnating again and again and again like stupids, because we don't even remember the previous reincarnation. It's like, and then sometimes we have to suffer a lot. You know, we have to very horrible places, and or we, even if we are humans, for example, we can get born in very horrible families or in very terrible places. So we are doing again and again and again, and every time we get born, and we get like completely involved in the film, and we like believe we are this person with this body and with this religion, with this whatever, no? And then we take it like very seriously, and we deal with a lot of things. We get very excited about the whole thing, you know, and then we die. Then again, and another thing completely different, maybe, again and again and again. So the Buddha was someone who knew this and knew how to stop it, which is incredible. What kind of person can do something like so amazing like this? Huh? It's really, really, really difficult. And he was the first one, so then it's still more difficult. I mean, because for us, we at least have his teachings. So he taught about his experience. You know, he got this all this knowledge about how to do that, and then he wanted to help others because he was feeling compassion about us. So then he taught the way of overcoming suffering in all kind of ways. You know, he taught us how to overcome suffering in the short term for this life, and how to make others like around also happier. He taught us how to overcome suffering forever, like in the ultimate way, which is like becoming or an arhat or a Buddha. You can choose, but we are supposed to follow the Buddha path, no? We are to be bodhisattvas, and, you know, finally, because if you become a Buddha, it's better because you can help others after you become enlightened in a very big way. So if you generate compassion, because we all have compassion, but the compassion that we have is limited, and normally it's also a little bit mixed with like grasping, because we normally love and have compassion for the people who treat us well, and not for the people who treat us badly, or for the people who is suffering, and not for the people who is living the life and being millionaires, and, you know. So it's a little bit limited, but you can work with that you have, and you have to enlarge it, you know. But you have to do it by meditating, by reflecting about it. It's not something that will happen. You have to work on it. But the Buddha gave you all the teachings on how to do all those things. Yeah.
So one of the Buddha's like main focus was on what you said, like helping people to overcome their suffering.
Yeah.
Well, seeing all the suffering in the world and then wanting to find an answer, like how do I find freedom from that suffering in myself and for others? So I think that is what led him to discovering the Four Noble Truths with the cause of suffering and the removing of the cause. Can you share a little bit about that, about the Four Noble Truths and the cause of suffering and how to be free of suffering according to the Buddha?
Yeah, well, I think most of the people will know this Four Noble Truths. That was the first teaching of the Buddha. They call it the first turning of the wheel, because every time he taught, they call it turning the wheel of the Dharma. Maybe something of the time, I don't know what is the meaning of this. And so then these Four Noble Truths, they talk about how to overcome suffering. So the first one is the suffering, and it's because we don't know that we suffer. This is the thing. We are so much involved in our film of the life that we forget that we are suffering. And also because there are kinds of suffering that we confuse for happiness, for pleasure. I will talk about this a little bit again. So we need to know that we are suffering. They always give this example of the people who is sick, but they don't know that they are sick. So first they need to notice that they have sickness. So because otherwise they are not going to do anything about it. So then you have this suffering, and then you have the origin of suffering. So the origin of suffering, it will be like the cause of the sickness, no? So you need to search for that also, because if you still have the cause, the sickness will still come. Like it's the same, like the symptoms. No? So the suffering will be like the symptoms. So the origin of suffering is what causes the suffering, which also we need to know, because we need to get rid of this one. So there's two types of origin of suffering, which are our actions. It's called karma, no? In Sanskrit, it's our actions and our afflictive emotions. That is all the bad, thoughts and emotions in your head. Those and the actions also, they will include not only what you do, say, or think, but also in the mind aspect. It is also what perception. Also perception will, so whatever mind you have, it also whatever you see, whatever you hear, everything is associated with a feeling, and it's something that when you meditate also you will see more and more. So all your thoughts, all your perceptions will be associated with a feeling of pleasure or pain or neutral. Or like suffering or happiness or neutral, you can say. So all this will create suffering, all the afflictive emotions and the contaminated karma, we'll say, because there is contaminated actions. Because when you go outside of the samsara, that means when you don't have to reborn again, you can do actions, but they don't have result in suffering. And you may think, oh, but why? Because I have good actions here. So when I am practicing generosity, for example, why am I going to experience suffering? Because when we talk about the three types of suffering, there's one that we take for pleasure. So this one is the result of the good actions which are contaminated. And if you ask about with what, it's contaminated with this ignorance. That is the ignorance of being here and thinking that all this is real, because when you think things are real, then you think like the cake is real, and then you start like have a lot of good thoughts of the cake, and then you really desire the cake, and this is all contamination. Contamination. And the next one will be the cessation, which is like cessation means that the truth of cessation means that it is possible to overcome the suffering, just like this. So, there are different explanations about this, but there is one very beautiful one that comes from the third turning of the wheel, which is we all have a Buddha nature. So we can become enlightened, all of us. And this Buddha nature is just like it's like hidden by our afflictive emotions, etc. And another explanation is like from the second turning of the wheel of the Dharma, which is talking about the nature of phenomena, how phenomena exist. That means that because so they will explain you that we have this ignorance about how the world exists, and then this ignorance is the root of all these afflictive emotions, all these negative emotions. So, and these negative emotions are the ones who will act as a propulsor for our actions. So we'll always act because of these emotions. Sometimes they are like a hatred, sometimes it's grasping or desire, but we are always moved because of this, because we always want to be happy and avoid suffering. So we see something we want, we want to go this direction. If it's something we fear, it's painful, we want to get rid of this, or so then there will be like hatred and the desire. No? But because we always think that these objects, they exist truly. So everything comes from the ignorance. So then if you eliminate the ignorance, you will not have these origins of suffering anymore. So that's another explanation of how you can achieve the cessation. And then the path. You have the path. The truth of path, this is the last one. The truth of path tells you how to achieve this cessation. And then there are so many explanations on the different paths, but the idea is if you want to be only an arahat, you meditate on the nature of phenomena. You have a lot of concentration, and need a lot of concentration, so that you have to also do concentration meditation, and then think again and again and again on emptiness. And this will lead you out of samsara. And if you want to be the Buddha, then you also have bodhicitta, which is this desire to reach this level, which is the Buddhahood, which will let you help all the beings. So then we prefer the second one, because it's useful for everyone. So then it is the path. Mainly is emptiness and bodhicitta. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the suffering, because there's three types of suffering. Because the Buddha said the truth of suffering must be known. No? There's also something to do with each of the truths. No?
Mm-hmm.
But the one you need to know, and need to know means to also reflect about the kinds of suffering that you normally will not notice as suffering, that will not recognize as suffering. Because normally for example, there is the first one is the suffering of suffering, which everyone will recognize as suffering, and refers to the sensation of pain. So that one, everyone, even the animals, little insects, they will know. But then the second one is the pleasure. So this one said from Santideva, he said they want to be happy, but they destroy the causes of their happiness, and they don't want to suffer, but they indulge in the causes of suffering like willingly, like. So then, why? Because we don't recognize the pleasure of suffering. We take the suffering, this suffering as pleasure. So normally we will say, but how is pleasure suffering? Because there's different also explanations. But for example, if I I am feeling cold, no? Because the weather is getting a bit cold, no? This is the suffering, no? The suffering I can't recognize. But then I will say, okay, I'm going to the sun, no? So I will stay in the sun, and the sun will give me, will alleviate this suffering. But it's not going to give me real happiness. Why? Because it's just less suffering at that moment, and it's also on the nature of suffering. It's exactly on the same nature of suffering because it's rooted on the third kind of suffering, which is our aggregates, which are contaminated also with this ignorance. That means our body is all the time like wanting like the right temperature and food and drink all the time, and you have to be breathing all the time, otherwise you suffer a lot, and it's completely thirsty of everything continuously. So then whenever you give something to this body will give you this little amount of pleasure. But that is in the nature of suffering, because you just have this little of pleasure because you have the underground suffering, and so this body is like manipulating you all the time. So you are like controlled by it. So it's a suffering. And also, as much as if you give to the body more and more, you will need also more and more. It's like no, now I need a special kind of clothes because this is like very rough. Now I want to like a little bit more like like nice touch or something. No? So it's also, if someone comes from like jail, for example, and you put them in a one-star hotel, maybe they are super happy. No? And the one who always goes to the 5-star hotel, he will be very, very, very unhappy in the 5-star hotel, no? Because he has been given to, getting all this pleasure, and then of course he has been accustomed to it, and then so then it's a trap. We never have real happiness in the samsara. Everything is on the nature of suffering. These are the three types of suffering. This is the suffering, which is the pain. We all recognize it. The second one was the pleasure, which we really want and look for, but it's never satisfying because it's not real suffering. They're not real happiness. And also, it will make us wanting more and more. So, and this all is because of the third one. The third kind of happiness, of suffering, which is our aggregates. They are already in the nature of suffering. It's like if they are going to torture you, how can they torture you? It's because your body is completely prepared to be tortured. You have all these nerves to why did our brain doesn't just say like, hey, there is some pain there, just look. No, you have to suffer a lot, And why? It doesn't have to be like this, This we are really like in a machine of suffering, and also our thoughts are also like complete and very yes. Because they have this ignorance, they also have like all the time like hatred or desire, and this is suffering as well, because all the afflictive emotions, they naturally will make you happy. So yeah, so just our mind and body is on the nature of suffering. So that's the thing. When you recognize this, then you want to get rid of the cycle of rebirths.